Hi, I'm Liz Ravenwood with the Golden Years Unlocked channel. And I have with me a friend that I know even better now and I'm more impressed with. Her name is Jean Parker. She's an intersectional thinker, qualitative researcher, and online educator, utilizing participatory research and education to build cohesive communities throughout the world. Her doctoral dissertation was on emergency preparedness learning through community radio in North Indian villages. Her book entitled Emergency Preparedness Through Community Cohesion, an integral approach to resilience, principles of constructive resilience to community building, decision-making, and community-based economic enterprise as necessary components of resilience and sustainability. Her research interests include community-based economic sustainability, integral research and development, the application of VUCA principles in community building, and the achievement of community and personal potential. She teaches, supervises capstone research projects, and provides academic advising in the Master of Sustainable Development Practice and Master of Nonprofit Management programs at Regis University in Denver, Colorado, USA. Thank you, Jean, for being here with us today.
You're most welcome. Good to be here.
Okay, let's talk about your personal and professional growth. What inspired you to pursue research on emergency preparedness education, community resilience, and sustainable development?
Well, it's a long story, but I'll be as brief as I can. I was working as a journalist based in India for about 10 years. I worked in South Asia, of course, a bit in Southeast Asia, Southern Africa, and the Middle East. And I covered lots of disasters, most notably the 2004 tsunami, Indian Ocean tsunami. And I went to cover that event in South India. It affected many more countries than that, of course. But my particular work was in South India. And I kept thinking about how the relief and recovery efforts would have been so much more equitable had there been community radio stations to give people information about what they were entitled to and how to get it. None of that was happening. And I had gotten my start in journalism in community radio, in particular, Radio for Peace International in Costa Rica. And so I kept thinking about this and how much more of a chance people would have had to rebuild their lives or to even understand what had happened had there been community radio with reliable information. And so I said to myself, if I ever had a chance to return to school, I wanted to study how that could be done in the Indian context. And so that's what I did.
Great. How has your own personal journey influenced your research and teaching?
So I come to this as a blind person, and I've developed a lot of resilience strategies throughout my life to manage a largely inaccessible society. And so when I went to do this work, I had all of that experience that I brought to the research that I did. It was immensely helpful in being able to plan and plan for contingencies when things didn't work out, which was a lot of it, and to be resourceful and creative about how I did my work. And so it brought an aspect to the work that was unique, I think, enough that it's worth commentary. And it worked the other way too, where the resilience that I had to develop to do this field research, which was a very complicated field research environment, that then became this kind of parallel internal external resilience exploration thing that went on.
Wow.
And so I think the biggest part of that was understanding that at some point things will kind of work out. They may not work out the way I intended them to in the first place, but you kind of have to understand that perspective to manage in a field environment like that. And bringing that into my personal resilience strategies has been not easy, but necessary. So that evolution was both external and internal.
Fascinating. Well, let's focus on your research and scholarship. Your dissertation focused on emergency preparedness, education, and community radio in North India. Can you share some key findings and how those findings have informed your subsequent research on community resilience?
So one of the things that I always look at very closely is where power is situated and how power moves around in a particular ecosystem. And so in North India, as in a lot of places in the world, the things that were causing disasters, or that are still causing disasters, were really expressions of misplaced power in many ways. And so when we did the programs, we worked with 2 radio stations. We produced radio programs for the community, by the community, on environment protection and emergency preparedness education. And so it was important that these be community radio stations, which are managed, operated, and governed by members of the community. So people in villages who have received training in how to broadcast, how to manage the technology, how to fix the transmitter, all that kind of thing. They also sweep the floor and do all of the tasks to operate the radio station, in addition to their farming duties or their shopkeeping duties or whatever else they do, or their home duties, So one of the important findings was that some of the information, they did the research to find out what was causing the calamities in their particular corner of the world. And in North India, in this particular place, Uttarakhand, which is a state in North India, it's earthquake prone. It has landslides, floods, and other things that happen as a result of environment mismanagement. So the information that they wanted to impart to the people in the villages could be seen as controversial to them. And so one of the things I like to highlight from the study is it wasn't just the message, but the messenger that made that information credible, and that made the message credible to the listeners.
Okay. Can you speak more to the controversial nature of the information?
Yeah, well, a lot of it was critical of business and political intent. There was also a lot of it, though, that drew on scientific evidence. And what I found when I first went there is there was a lot of resistance to understanding things like earthquakes as in a scientific context. So they were understood in a mythological context, or the explanations were from mythology, or of a spiritual nature.
Fascinating.
And there was this real rejection of scientific explanations as being imported from the West. And, you people have no spiritual guardrails or guidelines or context or anything. Yeah, and so I was really a bit apprehensive about what might happen when these people start talking about what makes earthquakes happen and all of the political things that are making landslides happen, all of the debris dumping into rivers that's making it impossible for them to drain off water from the heavy rains in the monsoon, thereby causing flooding. All of the buying out of politicians, ignoring building codes, making things so much worse when there's an earthquake and making buildings collapse because they were paid to not pay attention to the building codes. So all that kind of thing. And they used, the programs were very interesting. They used a lot of sound effects. Of course, these are radio programs. So yes, radio is viable still in many parts of the world. And so they used a lot of sound effects, a lot of characterization of various elements of the environment.
This is Liz, but I don't have a good computer recorder to use my own voice, so I'm using Ava on Clipchamp. I decided to stop the video at this point, as to not make it too long. In subsequent videos, Jean and I continue the conversation regarding her constructive resilience, the principles of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity influencing community building and decision-making. Please rejoin us for this continuing fascinating discussion.